me to your darkest room. Close every window and lock every door. The very first moment I heard your voice, I'd be in darkness no more.
Understanding dying helps us to live more fully in the here and now. So I'm hoping that this journey that we take will help many people to open up to being more receptive to their loved ones and to realizing that they can communicate with them, even if they're not in physical form.
The very first moment I saw your smile.
Hello, this is Maura James, and I'm very excited to be kicking off the Unbroken Chain podcast with a really special conversation that I got to record earlier this summer when I was passing through the Midwest. My dear friend Cass Greener of the Very Ape podcast hooked me up with Jerusha Keren. For many years, Jerusha has worked as a mental health and psychiatric nurse, and she's also a certified pranic healer. But the reason that she wanted to record a conversation is that she's ready to share the story of her relationship with her husband and a love that they shared that was so strong that it transcended his death. The things that she's learned from her communications with him on the other side have taught her so much about what we're doing here on earth, about how to live life, and also what we're doing on the other side. She's waited decades to share this. It's obviously a very intimate story, but she wants to be a light that reaches out and says, hey, I know a lot of people experience this kind of communication, and it's important to acknowledge it and own it and open ourselves to the impressions that our loved ones are making on our minds. There's so much magic possible. Thank you for being here. Here's Jerusha Keren.
Well, I guess if I were to begin, I would begin at the beginning. I have always had a personal communication and relationship with God. And when I was 2 or 3 years old, somebody died next door, and they were bringing the coffin out, and everybody was crying. And I remember to this day thinking, why are they crying? Why are they sad? Don't they know there's no such thing as death? So I came into this lifetime knowing that. And when I did come together with my husband, I knew there was something I had to offer him, and I didn't know what it was. But as it turned out, he was afraid to die, and I knew there was no such thing as death. So the journey that we traveled helped us transcend the physical and move into a spiritual oneness before he died that continued afterwards. And when I was a little girl, I would put my pillow on the windowsill at night and look up into the vastness of the universe. And I would feel so small in comparison. And I would talk to God and I would say, if you're my daddy, who's your mommy and daddy? And their mommy and daddy? And what is my purpose on earth? And I asked for wisdom, and it's been quite a journey, quite a journey. I went through a divorce, and in this marriage, God said, this is not my will for you. But I said, oh, please let me. I love this man, and I know that love can make it all better. I was young and in love, and so God honored my free will choice and went with me into this relationship. And I learned so much. This man was my best teacher. And what I learned was you can't help somebody who doesn't want to help themselves or isn't ready to go that path. And you have to honor their free will choice, just as God honored mine. Coming out of the marriage, I held on to my dream of my ideal relationship with my ideal man, but let go of the person who was no longer capable of fulfilling that. But I'd like to jump a little forward with that relationship. It took me 10 years to really come to terms with letting go of and forgiving. And I called my ex-husband and I said, I know this isn't going to make much sense to you. I was Jewish, he was Jewish, but he wasn't really spiritual or religious. But I said, but I'd like to ask you to forgive me if there's anything I've done to offend you. And he told me that long ago he had forgiven me and that he remembered only the good times. And we had a wonderful conversation. And I ended up telling him I still loved him. And my son was with him at the time. And when he got off the phone, my son said he was crying. And he said, you know what your mom just told me? She just told me she still loves me. He died the following March. And everything was cleared because we had come together. And over the coffin, I felt like my son and I and his father all came together as one. So to be able to forgive is just such a gift. More so for yourself, I think, than even for the person that you forgive. So now, going back to when I went through my divorce, I had this dream and I had this idea that was running through my mind, and I was cutting out all kinds of pictures from magazines like Fortune that had really beautiful, uplifting sayings or scenes. And then I woke up one morning at 4 o'clock in the morning and had to write down what was running through my head. And it turned out to be my ideal relationship with my ideal man. And when I put it together with my pictures, it formed a dream book. And that dream manifested into my second husband. And I really encourage people to do collages and do things like this, and also write goals, because there's something in the writing and in the visualizing these things that, if that's your intention, that helps that to actually materialize. And so then I asked God, how long is it going to be? And the answer that came back was 4 years, and of course I was devastated because I want it now.
Right.
And 4 years later, a cantor came to our synagogue for the high holidays, and I fell in love with how he sang his prayers from his heart with so much feeling, and I felt like I went right up to the gates of heaven with him. And I felt like I'd found a kindred spirit, and I looked forward every year to his coming. The year before his wife died, I was in the holiday services, and I was in deep meditation, and I felt my head move, and my gaze fell on her, and I sensed her fading and me moving into her space. And I went, oh my, where did that come from? I sure hope I wasn't thinking that. But it was precognition. 2 months before the high holidays the next year, she passed away. And my mother said that this is going to be a hard year for the cantor, and we're going to need to really be supportive of him. When he walked into the synagogue the first morning of services, I couldn't see him because the door is behind me, but I literally felt a door open in the back of my head and a breeze blow through, and a knowing that was so powerful that I looked at my sister and said, the cantor had just walked into the synagogue, and as we turned, he was walking by my aisle, and I was immediately and intensely drawn to him. And God started talking to me and saying, this is my will for you. I was in dialogue all day with God about this, but I felt so much pain and so much need and so much love coming from this man's heart that my heart literally jumped out and went to him. And I knew that I had something to offer him, but I didn't know what it was. And I knew that I wanted to be the person to be with him, to help him go through whatever it was he needed to go through. Once we got together, we were never apart. We ended up studying Kabbalah together, which is the mystical aspect of the Jewish religion, and I think that was very powerful. And then a time came when he was developing illnesses, and I said to him a piece of Kabbalah. I said, when we're in the eye of the ego, we're as a vessel that's limited, and God can't enter us. But when we become humbled, we become as nothing, and then we're as God, and God can enter us. So I said, while you're losing your hearing and your vision and your motor skills and your communication skills, these things are humbling you to allow room for your spirit to grow. And he said, I like that, because it gave him a purpose in meaning in what he was going through. After I had to put him in a nursing home, I was having a really hard time. That was one of the hardest decisions I ever had to make. In fact, at one point I was in tears, and I said, I'm afraid you won't love me if I can't take care of you at home anymore. And he said, I love you so much. I will love you to the end, no matter what. We just worked it out together. And at first, he thought that maybe it might be a good idea, and I went to put the laundry in, and when I came back, he said, I can't do that. I have too much spunk. And I said, you do, and you better not ever lose it. But we just worked it out and communicated, and finally realized that this was best for him and the only thing that we could do. So I had a friend who was a yoga teacher, and she did yoga therapy, and so she came to my house and put me in the cobra position, which opens up your heart. And she had me visualize that I was walking down a spiral staircase from my brain to my heart. And then I opened the door and I went in. And it felt like the womb. It was really comfortable and warm and cozy in there. And she said, now there's another door, and I want you to open that. And when I opened that, it was like I was standing on the edge of the universe. And I wanted to dive down, but I was afraid that I'd never stop. But in a step of faith, I stepped out, and there was a platform under my feet. And then I dived down, and when I got to the point where it was enough, I said, okay, that's enough. And I came to a standing position, and there was a platform under my feet. And then I said, I want to go back up where I came from, and floated up on this platform. And I went back into my heart and closed the door. And at first I felt claustrophobic. And then I realized, no, this body is the microcosm of the macrocosm. And if I can be in the macrocosm and the microcosm at the same time, like I had just been, then I can be in his heart and my heart at the same time. And then I felt this infinity sign go between our hearts. And that helped me to start to transcend the physical, so that I was feeling the joy of spiritual release in the top part of my heart, but the pain of physical loss in the bottom of my heart.
So you can dwell in both places at once.
Yes. Yes, exactly.
And is that how you've continued to commune with him since he's moved on from his body?
I would say so. One day, before he had to go to the nursing home, I went to a conference, American Holistic Nurses Association conference, and I took him with me. And the dementia from the Parkinson's was getting more of a problem. And I went to a workshop there where they wanted you to visualize the dream that brought you into nursing and see yourself going forward accomplishing that dream. And I couldn't do it. And I realized it was because I felt like he's dying by bits and pieces, and I was going with him, and I couldn't face a future without him. And I realized that I had walled myself off from him to protect myself from the pain. And I realized that I still had a lot of love to give and receive. If I could deal with the pain, I could open my heart back up to him. And I made a conscious decision to do that. And I think this is what happens. And we have to be able to flow with the pain and stay open to one another. But I didn't tell him anything. The next day he says to me, "Somehow you feel different. A warmth of loveness is coming out of you." And as we hugged gently, he said, "No one will ever take my place. I can feel it in my bones. I made a place for myself by loving you. Always have room for me at the window." And as the dementia was going, he was getting even more romantic in the way he would say things. And I said, "The window of my heart is always open to you." And so I think that's been a big part of the connection. It's a heart-to-heart thing, and opening your heart. And that shows too, the fact that he recognized a difference shows that people feel without you telling them. If you pull away, if you shut down, they feel it. And the fact that he was able to verbalize it was really a gift.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I don't even think you need to be physically in the same space with people for them to feel that.
No, you don't.
Yeah.
Because the heart, they're finding this out with heart math, that the heart puts out a certain vibration and it goes way beyond you. It probably goes into the universe. And we're finding out that we can heal through intention. And in some of the healing I do distance healing. Somebody can be in California and I'm on the other side. Mm-hmm. And it's the intention, because there's a planetary aura that we're all a part of, and we intend, and the planetary aura takes that energy immediately where it needs to go. So I've done a lot of healing distance. I think that's like what ESP is about, you know. But it's intention and love. Love is so powerful. I really think that life is to learn to love in deeper and deeper ways. And that life is for lessons learned for the evolution of the soul. And that the body is the vehicle we travel in. And it has to be finite, because if it weren't, we'd never learn our lessons. We'd just stay here and play. But the soul is eternal. And it takes with it the lessons learned from a lifetime of experiences.
And then do we choose to take another form? Is it a continual rebirth?
Well, I think if the soul is eternal, we have an eternity of experiences, and I believe that we can and do live other lives, and that there are universes out here that we can travel to and can experience many different realities.
I wonder, to step back into grief again, you are so powerful because you don't have fear of death, which it feels like is so formative for so many people. And I wonder if speaking from that place of strength, if you have some practical wisdom for people who are really in the pain, and how to be in the pain when it's happening, but to hold space for the greater being that you are.
I wrote a journal when I was going through all of this, and I'd like to share it with you because I think there's a lot of answers to that in this.
Please, I would love that.
Most of my journal would take place at 2 in the morning because I'd couldn't sleep. And so I'd get up and journal, I'd get support, I'd get answers, and then I could go back to bed. So this was 2:45 a.m. Dear God, why can't I sleep? What do I need to know? And what came back was financial concerns, health and well-being also. And then I felt a lot of tension, breath cut off. And then when I tuned into that in my body, what came to me was cut off from self. I'm out on the road, this journey. I'm not afraid, but I'm not able to relax. Constant tension, carrying a lot of weight on my back. Temples throbbing, telling me to go home. I know the way home. It's just so hard there. I don't want to go. So it's like feeling into what's going on inside of your body, becoming aware of it, and just staying open for what's the message it's telling me. Because body is trying to communicate with mind, mind's communicating with body, and so you get a lot of information there. And so to go on, I said, encased within the granite of a being going tense, petrified within, armored against what? Layer upon layer, shoulders to tailbone, trapped, afraid to feel, afraid to breathe, to let go, to be. How does he stand it? And I'd like to kind of do an interlude here before I go on, that what I learned was that it was both of us, and it was both of us trapping our emotions because we couldn't face the reality of what was happening to him and what it was doing to our relationship. And so it was gonna come out physically if we couldn't deal with those emotions. So a year later, I had a melanoma on my shoulder, and he had a bed sore on his tailbone. But then we were at the point where we were able to release these emotions and had been releasing these emotions. So we both had to have surgery, but it was a spiritual birthing and a healing on a spiritual level for both of us. When he came out of this surgery, I felt like he wouldn't even want to be alive because this infection went all the way down to the bone, and it was huge. It took a year for him to heal. But you know, when you're given a choice of no life or this life, life is a very precious commodity. And what I learned was that wasn't my choice to make. That was between him and his maker, and that my job was to take care of him for as long as he was here and to let the process take its place. And he came out of that surgery joyous. I think he had a near-death experience and wasn't afraid to die anymore. Whatever it was, he could hear without his hearing aids, and he was able to communicate a lot better. Something really shifted there.
Wow.
And for me, my surgery was like a healing. I've never had another problem with the melanoma, but I felt like I was continuing to go along my path, dedicating my life to God and to my mission. It was because we had been able to finally work through those emotions. It's so important to be able to get in touch with your feelings and to be able to work them through. And a lot of the work that I do, I work with that with people. So to just continue to read here, how I love my being. I want to protect it, take care of it. I can't let myself be bottled up, trapped within an encasement. I have to be free. I refuse to give in to this. And this was all the fear that was going on in me related to all of this. Be taken over by it. I have to keep breathing and being life, being the vibration of oneness with the universe. I have to tune into me. My purpose here is more than survival. It's about learning to live, be alive in the shadow of death and fear. To not let it rob you of the vestiges of you. And God said, life comes, life goes. This is not what's important. What we bring to it, take from it, that's what's important. Above all else, to your own self be true. Have faith in yourself and what you believe in. Keep in tune with and take care of yourself, and the rest will take care of itself. You're a seeker, a learner, a teacher, and that will continue to happen. It will fill and fulfill you. You are not alone, even when you think you are, and you never will be.
Wow. It's pretty strong medicine.
It was for me.
I love that it's sending you back to yourself. And I think that's a really important thing to be amplifying right now, that the answers are not outside of us and nobody else knows anything about you that you don't know.
Yeah, and we're all snowflakes. We're all different. But we're all part of the one. We're all part of God. We're all children of God. And we all have our own lessons to learn and our own path to follow and our own contributions to make. And we're all needed. Everything, whether it's a janitor or a street sweeper or whatever, it's not what we do, it's how we do, how we treat one another, how we show up.
So when you say we're more than this realm, what are we?
I like the Master Joa who says, I'm not my body, I'm not my mind, I'm not my thoughts, I'm not my emotions. I'm not even my mind. My mind is just a subtle instrument of the soul. I'm a spiritual being of divine love, divine power, and divine intelligence. I'm one with God. I'm one with all. And this is the truth, regardless of the brain's capacity to experience the truth. Because the brain is not who we are. It's just the transmitter of our everyday life things and the, learning to be in this world. But that's not who we are.
And we're here in this process of remembering, and there are certain experiences, it seems like death is a powerful teacher to help wake us up to that greater truth.
It really is. And life is a lot of experiences of letting go, learning to let go and just be. And death is the biggest letting go.
So how do you feel like this gift has continued to unfold since your relationship in this form?
Well, one thing that has happened is that I've been able to grow beyond what I am in the physical world. 6 weeks before he died, I was guided to take Reiki. And they gave me a tape, and they said, use this every day. Oh, it wasn't 6 weeks, it was 3 weeks before he died. Use this every day for 3 weeks, and it will become a part of you. And it was the day after the 3 weeks that he died. And I bolted up to a sitting position from a dead sleep at 6 a.m. in the morning, wondering why I was awakening. And I laid back down and I did half a Reiki tape, and the phone rang. It was the nursing home saying that he had passed. And I wondered why I was so calm. But the Reiki had done that. It puts you in a very spiritual, relaxed place. I went to the nursing home to be with him, and I sensed his presence. And I said, I have to say goodbye to the body. I have to give you a hug. And I left. And I still sensed his presence. In the afternoon, I did a Reiki tape. And during that tape, he came to me. And he said, I'm not going to leave you. This is the beginning of our eternity together. And we're going to learn how to grow and be in a whole new way. And I said, what was it like when you died? Were you in pain, or were you in the presence of angels? He said, I didn't feel any pain. I just felt myself being pulled out of my body. And in Judaism, in Kabbalah, we believe that death should be as simple as pulling a wisp of hair out of a bowl of milk. And he said, to tell you the truth, I didn't even know I had died until they came in and started talking about the fact that I was gone. And then I thought of you, and instantly I was there. I thought, that's when I bolted. That's when I woke up. And instantly I thought of my daughters, and then I was there. And I realized all I had to do was think it, and it happened. So I came to be with you when you went to the nursing home, and you really helped me because you were so calm. And we do believe that when when the soul separates from the body, that it's a little discombobulated. And so this was helping him. He says, and you didn't say you had to say goodbye to me. You said you had to say goodbye to the body. So when you left, I went with you, and I heard the phone calls, and I went to be with loved ones. And this was the beginning of our ongoing communication with one another on the other side.
Isn't that amazing that all the ancient wisdom traditions are basically talking about the same thing, that when the body dies and the soul is leaving the body, that there's a transition period, and that the way that the people still in this realm think, and the intention and love that they send them is part of that transition journey. I feel like that's resonant to Kabbalah and Tibetan Buddhism, and so many wisdom keepers pointing to that same process.
Yes.
And for you to live that directly with your direct experience is so powerful.
It was unbelievable. In fact, I don't know that I really believed what was happening to me, even though it was happening, because we think it's our imaginations. We don't give it credibility. And I had the gift of a niece who was 3 years old, and she came with her mom to be with us when when my husband died, but we didn't take her to the funeral. And 3 days later, she says to me, is your husband through dying yet? And I said, why? She said, because I saw him when you went to the funeral and left me with the babysitter. And that was just such a gift, because it wasn't something that she would make up. And if she was seeing him, then this must be real. And that really helped me to hold on to, even 6 months and a year later, she was still giving me messages that were saying, this is real, this is happening. Mm. So in sharing my story with everybody, it's like I'm trying to witness to them that this is real, that this really does happen. And sometimes people can't accept it, so they send messages to other people who can bring them messages. There's a book called Hello from Heaven, and I don't know how many stories it is, but it was written by people who were professionals and didn't believe in all of this. But they interviewed, I think, 1,000 people who had experiences even though they didn't believe in it. And the book is interesting because it has different chapters about different ways that they can make contact with you. And it's a worthwhile read.
It's like once you open the portals of possibility, they just keep opening.
Yeah.
Once you start listening, the messages come clearer and clearer.
Yeah, and the way I explain it, I say, you know, just because you're not tuned into it doesn't mean it's not happening. If you're watching channel 27, it doesn't mean channel 33 isn't on. You're just not tuned into it.
Well, I feel like the world has gotten infinitely more magical and playful for me the more that I have wanted to trust and believe, and it becomes infinitely more worth living and turning into something beautiful for me.
Exactly. There's so much more. And it's exactly what you're saying. And it's there for all of us. We just need to open up and be in that space.
And remind each other, like you're saying, because the people that we've decided to look up to for most of our authority are not sending the message that the truth is within you. So I think the fact that you're doing that that's what's necessary right now, is to remind each other who we are.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, definitely, definitely. And we need one another, and we need that support.
Yes.
It's not something you can do alone. And, you know, for so many years, I've been alone with this because it's not the kind of thing you could talk about. And in 2014, when I came across Barbara Marks Hubbard and did a 6-month webinar with her, I found 170 kindred spirits and was finally able to speak my truth and get confirmation. And I'm still on calls with them. And we're still supporting one another and still doing this work. I think there was another thing I wanted to share about when I brought him back to the nursing home and didn't trust. And so I'm saying, dear God, I'm trying to stay in this place of peace and oneness, but my fears are overcoming me. What can I do? And what came back was, let go of the fear and experience the transformation that is taking place. This is your transformation also. Your husband is teaching you how to die with dignity and courage in a clear, knowing space. Do what you have to do on the physical plane while you experience the sheer joy of release on the spiritual plane. Stand aside and witness the beauty and perfection of God's plan coming together through the letting go of the body and the resurrection of the soul. And that was so powerful to me. That really helped me to move up into the spiritual. And that we all go this path, the letting go of the body and the resurrection of the soul.
It would be a shame to wait until our own deaths to start walking that path.
Exactly. Exactly. And really, when you face all of this, when you face death and dying, you live more fully. Another one I wanted to share was about 3 weeks after he died. And I was really missing him. And I said, you know, I used to love to come to the nursing home. It was just so uplifting being with you. How can we make that happen now? And he said, be with me now, where you are in your heart. Breathe in and feel your essence expand. Feel me permeating the spaces between your molecules. And then I felt him hugging every molecule in my body, especially in my heart where the pain was. And it lifted me up into the oneness where there was no loss, there was no pain, there was no separation. And I decided to commit myself to being in that space more and more with him and God and the oneness. And then I had an experience that was really interesting where he was with me, and I went to AAA to get a triptych, and the woman who waited on me was really depressed and confused and down, and I got sucked into her energy. And I didn't even realize it. And I left discombobulated, drove out the entrance, and was way down the road before my husband was able to get my attention and tell me that I forgot my purse. And so I went back and got my purse. And I realized that I had fallen down 5 rungs on the ladder without even realizing it. And that I needed to be monitoring my thoughts and my feelings and keeping myself in the higher vibrations of love, joy, peace, gratitude. Because when you fall into the lower vibration emotions, you're not able to connect anymore. And that has been a big part of the journey for me. And when I was in those spaces, that's when I would do my journaling to God or to my husband and to others that I communicated with. They would help me to see what was going on inside of me and to be able to let go of what was pulling me down and move back into that oneness in that space.
So when we experience those negative emotions, that's not a shortcoming necessarily, but it's sort of an indication to listen and investigate what's causing it.
Exactly. Because those are the places where we're blocked, that we need to bring that into the light to clarify it for ourselves and to let go of it. You know, the brain is like a computer. And from the time we're born, we're taking in information. And we have misunderstandings, misinterpretations, misinformation, but we make decisions based on that. So as adults, we're still acting from those experiences and how we perceive them. And so what we need to do is really be able to let go of that to allow us to come up.
Yeah, I think somewhere along the way we got sidetracked thinking that those emotions are the reality. And it definitely feels to me like a reprogramming to become aware that that process is even happening and is not reality. Wow, I love how this can apply to every single part of the way that you live your life. The awareness that this process brought you, it seems like informs every relation, every choice, and every moment before you.
I think it even informed my being able to recognize my blocks to getting involved in the world with what's going on now and being able to step forward because I've been able to identify my fears and overcome them, and so I can step out and speak my truth in this day and age and what's happening in our world.
Because there is so much that feels like it's not working right now. It is a time that really brings out fear, if there's fear. That is for sure.
We as a humanity have to wake up or we will not survive. And the times right now are bringing all of our fears to the surface, but it's so we can work with them and we can resolve them and let them go and move to a higher level of beingness and humanity.
So what do we do when we meet negativity in the world from our environment? How do we meet that and transform that into a higher vibration?
Part of what I do, because of the experiences I've been through, I understand where that negativity is coming from. And I recognize that I was there at one point too in my growth process. So I have compassion for them and where they're at. And I ask them questions because I want to understand how they're thinking and why they've made the choices they've had. And when they tell me, I understand why they're making those choices. I don't agree with them. I don't think that what they think they're going to get, but I can understand it. In my field of work, when I worked with psychiatric patients, I would ask them, what in your life led you to think the way you do? And when they would tell me their story, I would say, if I were in your shoes, I don't know if I'd be doing as good as you are. Because that is a lot to be carrying and dealing with. So I think we have to open our hearts, and that forgiveness is really important, and to love them. In a lot of the groups that I'm in and everything, and a lot of the programs that I'm a part of, we are holding the energy. We are bringing the energy up. We're holding the world in love. All of that has power. Mm-hmm. There's a critical mass too, which means that there's a point, a tipping point. And they talk about the 100th monkey, and it's the idea, and this is true, and the 100 is just a number. Monkeys started washing their potatoes in water. And when the 100th monkey did it, monkeys on the other side of the world started washing their potatoes in water. In other words, there's energy that, when people say, where's God? God is everywhere. It's the soup that we swim in. It's the ethers that we get our ideas from. When we raise the level of that consciousness, then everybody starts being affected by it. So any work, the best thing we can do is to work on ourselves. Because anything we do makes us more able to share more with everybody. Mm. The way I am today is the way I show up. So the more I can heal myself, the more I can offer you as a healer. Mm. So it's really important for us to work on our own stuff. The job of the ego is to maintain an equilibrium within ourselves. And when we can't face the stuff inside of us, the next best thing for the ego to do is to project it out there. Yeah. And make that the enemy. And that's what prejudice, paranoia and prejudice really is all about, is projecting our fears onto somebody or something out here and hating that person. And now we maintain an equilibrium within ourselves. But that's a malfunctioning defense mechanism. It's not healthy. And in the same time, you're causing all kinds of illnesses for yourself. The energy that it takes to hold these walls is energy that is drained from our life. And when we can release these prisons that we're in, it brings us more joy to move forward in life, and that's what you're talking about. It's all ours. And energy's never, it's not either created or destroyed, it just changes form. Mm. So this is how we change the form of it and change the form of the world. And it's taking care of ourselves, whether it's, physical with diet, with exercise, spiritual. Meditating is huge. I started meditating 7 or 8 years ago, and that changed my life. And this was already after all of this. The meditation has helped me with my growth process even more.
How do you feel like it's helped you?
More calmness, more joy, love, and bliss. So whatever I do with myself, wherever I go, that's what I send out. So the more of this I can gain, the more I can share with others. And they feel it. Mm-hmm. And it helps them to relax, to go inside themselves, to have confidence in themselves. It's an ongoing process, step by step. And it's kind of spiral. So you go up, you learn something new, and you're really on the top of the hill, and then you fall back down because now you got to integrate it into your everyday life and implement it. Yes. And the next time you come up, you're higher, and you come down, but you keep going higher. Yes. And I think of it as rungs of a ladder. So when you're standing on one rung, you can barely see what's above you. It's almost like it's clouded, and you can almost get some idea. But you can understand everybody who's on the rungs below you because you've come through that. Life is such a beautiful, precious gift. And this body is, only God could create it. It's the temple of God. And we are just beginning to wake up as a society. Elizabeth Kubler-Ross used to say that the United States was in the adolescent stage of development. And you can see that. Mm-hmm. And so as a country, we have a lot of growing up to do. And we have a lot of cleaning out. We haven't really dealt with what we've done to Native Americans. We haven't dealt with what we've done through slavery. Those things have to be faced and dealt with. And you grow through it. It's a healing process that brings you to a higher level of beingness.
You just have to push through the fear right now.
Yeah. Fear controls us if we let it, because it's going to be tied in with a past experience that we've had that this thing now triggered, and we're back there again, and we're caught in that prison.
Even collectively.
Yes, oh yes, collectively. And it isn't reality. It's an illusion, but it has that much power over us as long as we believe it.
The stakes feel really high right now. Yeah.
They are.
Yeah.
They are. And that's when we make quantum leaps in evolution. Like Barbara Marx Hubbard says that every time that we are at the point of extinction, there's these quantum leaps of evolution. And she believes that we're on the cusp of a quantum leap from Homo sapien to Homo universalis. The immune system attacks it because it's foreign, but it is programmed to proliferate, so it continues until finally the immune system surrenders. And she says we're butterflies, we're being rebirthed. Okay, I think that God was lonely because he was one, he was the only one. So he wanted to create humanity so that he could experience with us and through us. But he didn't want, when we were one with him, it was all bliss and all love. But he didn't want us to just do it because that's all we knew. He wanted us to be able to make choices. And so he gave us this experience where we can have free will choice and experience many things. But like what I learned from my experiences, I learned why this was not the will of God for me, my first marriage. And I learned to grow out of that and go in a different direction that brought me closer to God and closer to appreciating all of what he creates and loving him, because I knew the difference. If I didn't have the opposite to know, then it wouldn't be the same. So when we go through negative experiences or we do things wrong, it's not that we're sinful. It's that we are experiencing, and it's what we do with that. My dad always used to say, we don't make mistakes, we have learning experiences. And it's not that what you did is wrong, everybody's going to make mistakes. It's what did you learn? The thing is to not repeat that mistake again. So you learn from it and you keep building and growing.
But you have to do away with shame in order to do
Yes. See, and I never knew shame, and when we were never shamed. And when I would see people being shamed, I'd get indignant. Or if somebody would say, you should be ashamed, I'd go, what are you talking about? That doesn't even make any sense to me. So yeah, you're right. That is huge, the shame.
That's a good dad. That's a really good dad.
Oh, I had amazing parents. We were so gifted. You see the family, and that we're still all together, third generations, still like bonding together.
Wow. Yeah, I definitely thought about it when I looked at the fridge. I've had a very different extended family experience. I've made the world my family.
Well, and that's good too. And that's good too. Not everybody gets this. And I think there are reasons. If life is for lessons learned for the evolution of the soul, then on the other side, the soul looks at, okay, what other lessons need to be learned and what experience would provide the best opportunity to learn those things. So we kind of choose our parents, the experiences we're going to go through for our own growth and development. But when we get here, we forget. And the whole thing is to be able to learn from those experiences and grow through them.
And not compare to other people's journeys.
No, right,
Yeah.
Exactly. There is no comparing because it's all different. Okay, this is kind of a funny one. What would have been his birthday after he died? He woke me at 5:30 in the morning. He said, we're having a birthday party and you're invited. And so jokingly I said, what should I wear to your birthday party? He said, come in your birthday suit. That's what everyone else is wearing. And so then it was about, 9:30 in the morning, and I was driving to yoga, and he said, okay, we're ready. And where we were going to go was to 3 past lifetimes that he and I have lived together.
Wow.
And the people that were going with us were his study partner. He had a study partner on the other side. She was guiding it. And she had been in some of those lifetimes too. And his parents and his first rabbi, who was his mentor. And it was very interesting going to these different lifetimes. And afterwards we got back together and we discussed, well, what did you learn? And what came out for me is that each of us had kind of something that we were working on. Like mine was, I want to be taken care of. So my whole lifetime has been spent in learning how to become my own person and stand on my own. My son's was, I don't want anyone to tell me what to do. And so his experiences showed him directions that he didn't want to go in, and he himself turned himself around and went in a different direction. What we learned was how in each lifetime you learn. And his father said that what he had learned in this lifetime would help him in the lifetime to come. And there was an issue with my husband, was afraid that I wasn't going to back him in issues having to do with my son. But I was so glad to have somebody there to be with, and I had every intention of backing him. But in one of these lifetimes, it wasn't like that. And I didn't agree with him or back him, and there were problems. But I had learned from that lifetime, and I was at a different point. But he did not realize that, and he's still working on past awarenesses that maybe he didn't even realize that he was bringing with him.
Wow.
So it was just very interesting. So it's, we get a lot of opportunities, and who we are in one lifetime, you can't judge a person from that, because this is just one piece of a whole lot of what we really are. Maybe that's the piece that we're working on in this lifetime, but we're much more than that. So even a beggar or a drunkard, he can be a very evolved soul who came for the effect that it was going to have on other people in their growth process. It's kind of like we make contracts with one another of, you'll play this part this time and I'll play this part, and it's for our growth and development. So I loved from Don Quixote, it said, it's sad if you don't have a petty tyrant in your life, or be grateful if you have a petty tyrant in your life, because if you don't, you have to go out and find one, because they teach you to let go of self-importance. And I have held on to that. And when I start getting huffy and up in my ego, like, well, don't they know that I love him, or don't they see what I'm doing? I look at, that's the ego. And you need to let go of that. That's self-importance. Look at me, look who I am. You need to let go of that.
So is your understanding that are there a finite number of souls? Do we all, on the other side, do we all meet up and make these contracts and come back?
Oh, that's a good question. That is a good question. They say that we travel in soul groups. So that, and I know that there are people that I meet that I know we've been together before.
Yes.
So within that, I mean, you might have been the sister, the mother, the daughter in the same, with these people, that you play different roles. You might have even been male or female.
Yes.
So there's a lot of different roles that we play. But I think that we're only looking at Mother Earth and this time-space dimension that we know of, and that there is so much more. there's not only the universe, there's universes. And that there is all form of evolutionary process life out there. And that we very possibly have had many experiences in many places, or will have, that it's not isolated to just this experience. That's what I'm starting to receive. And I am expanding my awareness beyond what I even thought was possible. But what is so great is that we are awake to this process that's happening. We are aware that we are experiencing it at a cellular level. And it's not a death and rebirth, unless you want to call it a death and rebirth within our own lifetimes that we are going through this. But there's something really big going on. We are evolving into the Aquarian age. The Mayan calendar was the end of that age, not the end of. And now we're on a whole new trajectory. And so this evolving, a quantum leap in evolution, something very big is happening.
Wow. What a gift to be awake to that in this life. That's so cool.
I can't even believe it. I can't. I mean, talk about gratitude. I am constantly in such joy and tears and gratitude to God for all of this beautiful gift of being able to experience all of this and to be alive. And I have more and more appreciation of the physical form and what we've been given. This is our lab, our laboratory, our experimental, it's so much more than a vehicle. And through it, we can give and receive love, and that's the most important thing. We're like a spider. A spider weaves a web. We weave love. It's the God in us coming out.
I love that. Wow. We weave love.
We weave love.
Yeah.
And God is love. So when you're in love, you're in God. You're one with Him no matter what. You're one with Him whether you know it or not. You're one with Him whether you're being good or bad. That has nothing to do with it. Nothing to do with it. And there isn't this thing as you're going to hell or any of that. That's whatever we perceive in our own mind. If that's what we think, then we may experience that, but that isn't the reality.
It's a powerful story that's been used in this realm.
Lots of things to control.
Yeah.
And when you recognize that this is all illusion, it's not real, then the power of that is broken. And now, like Barbara Marx Hubbard says, we're creating new memes.
When you say this is not real, what do you mean when you say that?
I feel like my body or the world is a screen that a movie's being projected on. And I'm an actor in the play. But it's for my learning and growth and development. And that the soul takes with it the lessons learned from a lifetime of experience. But this is the illusion. And the reality is the oneness and love and all of that. And that's where we've come from. And that's where we're returning. At first I thought I could only talk with my husband. But then when my mother died, after 3 weeks, I couldn't stand it anymore. And so I journaled to her, and I got back 3 pages, but really I've got 10 pages. And it was so interesting following her journey and how she experienced it. Knowing her, she was a very pragmatic, realistic person, and but very loving, deep loving. Our family cohesiveness is due to her and her love for the whole family and how she brought us all together. I had forgotten that the man that I was dating died 2 weeks after she did, or very shortly after. And so I was journaling with him.
Wow.
And that was really interesting because he was in the dark. He was having a hard time even coming through into the light. And I was able to help him, but not only that, my mother was able to help him. And that was her first assignment after she went over, because they learned to help one another cross over.
Wow.
And so when he was with him, he felt like I was with him, and he always felt better. And together we were able to bring him out into the light. But his experience was different because he was really hard on himself. And my mother, when I was sharing my journals with her when she was still alive, she said, "But I don't want to change." I said, "Mom, you don't have to. But did you think that maybe I'm preparing you for what's to come?" And she said, "I thought about that." And the thing was that what Judaism teaches in most modern day is that you don't go on, you only live on in the memories of those you leave behind. And so it's really important to live a good life, which is really good. But it's really amazing that in our prayer book, every service, we thank God who keeps faith with those who lie in the dust, who raises the dead to life eternal. But nobody believes it or takes it as being literal.
Right.
But to me, it was always literal.
Right. Yeah.
And so the fact that I was able to help her at that point in time was just such a gift to me. And then she was so weak that she really couldn't talk that much, and she couldn't really say anything. So in these journals, she was telling me, she saw everything she experienced. She was telling me all that she appreciated about her loved ones and how they nurtured her and how they tended her, and that was just such a gift.
Mm-hmm.
Such a gift.
Gratitude is a gift. Yeah.
Because gratitude, and when you think of the things you're grateful for, that is raising your vibration. And that's what we need to do, is raise our vibration to be able to be in communication with all of this and to be able to receive all of this.
Yeah. The wisdom never stops.
And when you know what, and it's never stopping for me, because I'm continuing to learn.
Yes.
And continuing to go, wow, 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 wow. And it's a bigger and bigger picture. And sometimes I say, oh, and I've always asked for things in manageable doses so that I don't get blown out of the water. Because I used to be a pendulum swing, and I'd go to one end and to the other end, and I was impulsive, and I got into a lot of problems. So it was like, okay, I want this in manageable doses so that I can still be here and live my life and take care of everything else I need to take care of. But it is, it's picking up. It's picking up. Mm-hmm. And I think everybody's feeling it. And you're saying it, you're experiencing it. And if people aren't open to being aware of it, they're still receiving it.
They're in the soup.
They're in the soup.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that was interesting too, was when my husband answered me, the question of, somebody wanted to know, was he in heaven, and was he with God? And he said something about, well, it's hard to answer heaven because it's a different thing for everybody, and it's limited. And this is a much bigger picture. And if you ask if we're with God, then it's asking if the vegetables in the soup are with God, because they're in it. They swim in it. They're immersed in it. They don't even know they're in it. Yes, it's all around us. It permeates us.
Thank you for that reminder.
And it does here too. We just aren't aware of it. And when we open up to it, that's the best.
It's staggering. Yeah.
That's the best. And then we receive. And maybe we don't receive in words, and maybe we don't get the answers we want. I mean, it's gotten to the point that when I do healing, I say, I lay so-and-so at your feet. Please give them a healing for the best good of all involved. Our will be done, meaning mine and God's. Our will be done. So I'm saying, I don't know. I don't know what's the best. what I want might not be what's best for everybody, and it's more than just this person that's involved.
Wow, you really welcome a lot of surrender into your life in all ways, even in your healing work. That's amazing.
Oh, yeah. In 1980, I was drawn to a course called Touch for Health. I came home thinking, oh my God, does this stuff really work? And I started doing it on everybody who would let me, and they'd say, how'd you do that? And I'd say, you mean it really works? But it is a method of assessing your energy flow using muscle testing or applied kinesiology and correcting imbalances through acupressure massage techniques. And what it is a self-help, health maintenance technique that puts your body back in the normal healing mode. And since 1980, I have used it practically on a daily level. And if I think I'm coming down with something, I do it. If I have pain, I do it. I use it to test for foods that are strengthening and weakening for me, or medications, or brands of medications. It's just a part of my everyday life, and it is so empowering to know that you, at your fingertips, have a way of being able to take care of yourself and your loved ones. So I highly recommend Touch for Health.
Thank you for saying that, because I feel a lot of hopelessness from people who have, especially physical ailments right now, about feeling like there's not, just feeling disempowered, I guess, from transforming themselves. And it sounds like there's such a clear connection between the body and the spirit.
I mean, they talk about Touch for Health, they talk about it on a physical, emotional, mental. But what I found is that when the body is centered and balanced, that's when you're open and receptive to receiving the messages. So it's really important to take care of our body. Because, and people don't realize, but the GMOs are making us sick. They're killing us. And there's a lot of information coming out now about this. The gut communicates with the brain. And if I'm explaining it right, the cells have to be connected in order for the messages to go. And what the GMOs do is break up those lines, so now they're not connected anymore. So the body doesn't know what it needs and can't take care of itself. We are destroying ourselves with the GMOs.
Well, and you were offering me the filtered water earlier. I feel like just in the past couple weeks, I've had so much information about fluoride come into my world, and how the fluoride and that most of us are consuming, not knowing it, is so damaging to our pineal gland and to that flow that you're talking about, that openness.
You know, I was a public health nurse when that was first coming out.
Really?
And because it was a government thing, we were supposed to go knock on doors and educate people about this. And I took a stand and said, I'm not doing it because I don't think it's good for people.
Well, you've been speaking truth forever, huh?
I guess.
Yeah, healing our relationship to the earth feels like one of those imperative awakenings that is just, I hope it's right around the corner. I hope it's part of what you're describing, because it feels so fundamental that we can't become the, what did she call it? The human universalis. We won't be able to leave until we've done our work to repair that relationship with the earth. Yeah.
Right. And that's another thing when I do my exercises, I go outside barefoot. Because you have to be on the ground. Mother Earth is really our mother. It really nourishes us. And with, cement and shoes and all of this, we're disconnected. We're disconnected from that flow. And I recommend hugging trees. You get a lot of energy. I can feel it go into the earth and go up into the sky and come down. And if I'm really upset, depressed, anxious, coming down with something, 10 minutes hugging a tree and I'm balanced. I think I'll go with that.
Thank you for sharing about that.
Take me to your darkest room. Close every window and lock every door. The very first moment I heard your voice, I'd be in darkness no more. Take me to your most barren desert. 1,000 miles from the nearest sea. The very first moment I saw your smile, it would be like heaven to me. There are not any mountains too rugged to climb, no desert too barren to crawl. Somewhere, if you just show me a sign of love, I could bear any loss. Take me to Siberia and the coldest weather of the winter time. It would be just like spring in California, the day you say you'll be mine. Take me to Siberia and the coldest weather of the winter time. And it would be just like spring in California, the day you say you'll be mine.
Thank you for joining us for this conversation. If you want to connect with Jerusha, she would love to hear from you, and her email is in the description of the podcast. You can reach out to her to talk more about communication with those who have passed on, and also to talk more in depth about energy work and healing options. You can, of course, find me, Maura James, online at my website, maurajames.com, and on Instagram, all that below. Be sweet to each other out there. We'll hang again soon.